Ladies and gentlemen, it's currently Thursday, May 4th, 2023, and if you've been following the chess world at all, you know that we recently crowned a new world champion, and that world champion is not named Magnus Carlsen. In today's video, I will be telling you my exact thought process for why Magnus relinquished the world championship title, and the answer, or the reveal, might surprise you. It has nothing to do with Jan Nepomniachtchi or Ding Liren. It has to do with a British dude named Frank. And if you've been following chess content whatsoever over the last 30 to 60 days, you will know exactly what I'm talking about. I have done a few collabs now at this point with Frank from the UK, and he is rapidly improving in strength. He might be improving at a rate that Magnus Carlsen could only hope to aspire to. And in today's video, I will share with you some of the recent games that Frank has played, as he has surged past 500 and up to even 600 elo. Now, this is really sensational stuff. Frank was 500 for like 3 days, and then he got up to 600. As I am recording this video, he is almost halfway to 700, and it hasn't even been 12 hours. This is truly spectacular stuff. Now, maybe Frank was 2,800 elo to start with, and he was just, I don't know, nerfing himself for content. But this is really something, and I would love to share this with all of you. So, a series of about 5 to 6 games from yesterday, and Frank is only improving, and his elo is only climbing higher. Now, of course, he's still making mistakes, but we're going to analyze. So his opponent starts out with a Nimso Larsen, and then plays e4. Just kind of weird, nothing crazy yet. Love what Frank's doing here. This is a very bad move. I don't know why you're putting the bishop to be blocked by 2 pawns. Frank is a principled man. All right, he plays the move d5, 2 pawns in the center, knight d5. Now here, Frank misses the attack on this pawn. He should, of course, just develop the bishop. He plays bishop e6. Okay, whatever. Blunders a pawn. Typical 600, 560 elo stuff. But now he castles. And good things are going to happen to you if you play like this, right? If you just develop your pieces in the center of the board and then you castle. Frank now plays a fantastic move. I love knight b4, looking to get the knight for the bishop trade. Bishop c4. Can't really hate on this trade whatsoever. f5 is a nice idea, trying to open up the queen to go here and also conveniently attack the pawn on c4. And basically, to gain elo at this level, you need to outlast your opponents. You basically need to be the one to make the second to last mistake, or just make less mistakes in general. Well, in this position, Frank uncorks the move knight takes c2. Now, knight takes c2 is a fascinating idea, because when this knight goes here, suddenly the knight sees everything. The queen sees the knight, the rooks are staring at each other, and the bishops see the bishop. And white can't take everything and run, so white tries to do this, Frank trades, and now, of course, the ending of the combination should have been this move, but instead he plays the move queen to h4. But okay, then he takes the bishop. It's typical 500 stuff. Queen f5. Now, this game was a fight to the death. This was the Hunger Games of low elo chess, as his opponent was trying to get him to take the queen and get back rank mated. But what Frank realized is the bishop is actually guarding the rook. Now, he also went back and then actually went forward and started launching a monstrous attack of his own. And in this position, Frank can actually take the queen. He can take the queen because after rook takes e8, it's not actually back rank mate, since the bishop can come back, which is very nice. And then Frank is winning. But he didn't see that, because he's not a smurf. Instead here, Frank played a ridiculously creative move. And I'm not just saying that because, that's my way of being nice. This was a very unique idea. Frank wanted to get the rook away from the defense over here, and he played the move bishop to c1, which is amazing. Let me undo that. He played the move bishop to c1, and the point is that if you play rook takes, I'm getting this for free. So his opponent did this, and now Frank took the pawn. And a few moves later, Frank got into a queen and knight endgame, defended against checkmate, forked the rook, immediately swarmed the king, and right before his opponent was able to infiltrate, rook f1 was the dagger. What a game. A back and forth affair, making sure his king was protected on the back rank. Clutch defensive performance there from Frank, and he had another game with the black pieces. This one was a London. He went after the bishop. Look at this edgy stuff. Tried to kick the bishop around. Now, here he did something kind of weird. Like, generally, if you're going to play knight h5, you should probably take the bishop, because otherwise I don't really know what you're doing. But he doesn't. He kind of does whatever he wants. And then he played e5, which is incredible. Look at utilizing this pin, and his opponent cannot actually sufficiently capture, so his opponent's got to, move, and now a fork. And he's just winning. I mean, he's beating the London in 9 moves out here, which is, I mean, every player's, but then he didn't take the knight for some reason. Frank is a genius. It's every player's dream to beat the London, right? This quickly. Of course, you just take the knight here. But you see, Frank is really smart. Frank played bishop before check. Now, of course, white should just play here. Now, you cannot really take this because probably I will just go here. But Frank knew that his opponent in this position would be possessed by low elo demons. And instead of hanging a knight, he hung a queen. And whereas the last game that Frank played was like a back and forth and this and that, no, Frank in this game just converted. How do you win a position where you're up such a massive amount of material, trade down a few pieces, and then probably launch a devastating attack? Knight takes bishop, exactly right. Bishop takes knight, exactly right. Couldn't have played it better myself. And now that you've castled, your rook has an open line of sight. Boom. I mean, this man is playing 1,000 level chess, and he's got a 574 rating. And look at this. I mean, the rook just goes on a roller coaster, just eating every pawn in its path. And now, in this position, he plays probably his best move of the game. I know he's already crushing, but d4 is just amazing. An amazing move to get the knight and the queen into the position by forcing a pawn trade. A couple moves later, he took here, and then his knight got in, took on b3. The queen is hitting the king. In goes the queen on d4, and just clinical. Absolutely clinical technique. Check, check, check. And down to f1. I mean, this is amazing. Like, this is... The opening was a little bit tricky. I don't love the moving the knight and then the pawn, but I mean, he made it work. He pinned the knight to the queen, and he made it work. This is exactly how you play on piece mechanics. This is like perfect play here for, you know, trying to get to 600. I'm telling you, he's playing 1,000 level chess. Another game, we have d4, another London. This time, Frank doesn't go for knight c6, knight h5. You know, Frank's not a one-dimensional pony, okay? Put some respect on his name. This time he plays the World Championship preparation c5. Jan Nepomniachtchi played against Ding Liren in the World Champs. We have dc5. Now, the way you're supposed to win this pawn back is to play e6, but, you know, Frank makes his own rules, knight e4 and knight c5, but he's fine. And I mean, for a second game in a row, he's doing super well against the London, and this game, my man Frank got edgy with it. My man Frank went pawn to e6, knight to c6, and he met the move knight b5, looking to get in here. Of course, he should just play rook c8. This man played 0-0-0. 0-0-0. Long castling into this. Now, he might have done that by mistake. He might have, like, accidentally clicked that square and then it, like, moved it. Like, that's happened. Like, for example, if I touch my king and then I'm like, actually, I don't want to castle. I want to go move my rook instead. Look what happens. If you touch the king and then touch the rook, chess.com just assumes that you cannot put 2 and 2 together. So they, like, help you out. Very, very annoying. But, you know, his opponent did not follow up with the right response. His opponent, of course, should start a pawn attack, but instead plays knight e5, which immediately blunders because not all trades are the same. His opponent's idea was knight takes, bishop takes, and then some sort of attack, but he failed to realize that when black's knight moves to e5, the queen's line of sight opens up here. So every time a piece moves in chess, that's the stuff you got to think about. What other pieces can see now? Now the opponent's like, oh, actually, I didn't mean it. And now Frank plays a6 and f6, and it's just a piece up. Now let's watch him convert this game. Let me just turn the color back on. Queen d6, e4, close the center with pawn to d4. Just don't blunder anything. Okay, I'm not a huge fan, but bishop d6. And now Frank misses something very fun. You always have to look for checks, and Frank's just got to do a little bit more puzzles. This is something that you build up as you play more chess. In this position, black only has 1 check, and before you do anything else, you should really scan for this check. Bishop takes h2, and that just wins you the queen. So this is like, for all of you trying to improve, let Frank be your ambassador. That's just the free knight, by the way. That's just a 1-mover. Blocks, excellent. c3. Now get the king. I would get the king out of the way so you're never susceptible to pawn to b4, because now, you see, you really need to play king b8 in this position, or you need to offer a trade of queens so that you're no longer pinned, right? But that doesn't happen. Instead, we have rook e8. His opponent does play bc. Frank plays bishop takes h2, queen h6, and then wins the queen. This is probably the most sophisticated, I would say, this is the greatest tactic Frank has ever played. Ever. In this position, Frank's opponent takes his knight, and if Frank takes the queen, he'll lose his queen. But if Frank takes the pawn, he will lose his rook. So what does Frank do? Of course he can just trade queens. But here Frank plays bishop takes h2 check. And after king takes back, both queens are still hanging, but now this! And now check on the king. The queen moves out of danger, and the queen has no way to escape. And Frank, with a 3-move combo, picks up the queen. I mean, what? Who taught this man? Rook d4, he cleans up, gets in, and it's queen h6, and it's rook d1, and it's game over. And Frank is now a game away, all right? He is a game away. I mean, this is 2 games away. Chess.com counts your official rating. And he never stopped. Another London? No problem, all right? Another London, this time Frank plays it slightly differently. Knight e4, he doesn't play it perfectly. In fact, he gets quite a bad position early. What did Frank do wrong in this position? You never want to play c4 in the London. You never want to do that. You want to keep the pressure on the center. But even if you do this, it's fine. And you don't want to play these kind of like random h-pawn moves. Bishop in the center, bishop f5, e6. And you don't want to make multiple moves with the same pieces before you finish developing. He made multiple moves. Knight e4, totally unnecessary. Knight e4, his opponent's got way too many pieces out, and Frank doesn't have anything out. So Frank should play bishop f5, Frank should play e6, and all of this. So sometimes when you're 600, you break the principles, and it happens. All right, that's you cannot always play at a high enough level where you're going to consistently improve. This is a very bad decision because not only did Frank lose a pawn, he also lost all of his development, and then he not only is down a pawn in development, he triple isolated his e-pawns, and queen h5 check is now devastating because the king has to go here, and at the very least, I can win a rook. And this was all caused by Frank's mistakes. So what did he do wrong? Made multiple moves with pieces that he already developed, sabotaging his own development. Not only did he sabotage his own development, in the process, he actually greatly improved his opponent's position. Then he lost the pawn, and then he opened up his king, but his opponent played knight g6 in one go, and then here, and that allowed Frank to actually castle. And now he's not that much worse. His opponent plays queen b3. Now here Frank, sees that his pawn is hanging and decides it's better to lose a rook than to lose a pawn, which is inaccurate. That's not a good decision. His opponent doesn't see that. His opponent only sees this and doesn't see this at all, and so goes here. Now, what should his opponent done? Take first. Because the queen is hanging and the rook is hanging, and black can't stop both threats. This, rook d7, and the opponent keeps dancing around and trying to... and this is a terrible decision. So, not all trades are the same. You are taught at a very, young age, low elo, you are taught 3 for 3 is a fair trade. This is not a fair trade. Black's dark-scored bishop has not moved the entire game. It's stuck behind 2 pawns. That white knight is galloping around the board triumphantly. What you want to do here for white is lock in an outpost. An outpost is a square in your opponent's position from where a piece can park and never be removed without material loss. And no piece in black's position is going to be able to take that knight unless it's a rook or a queen. Instead of that, we have this. And as we have seen throughout these games, Frank is a monster rolling downhill. And Frank, in this position, plays the move e6, which is using his triple stack against his opponent. Pawn takes e6 is a fatal error. And in this position, Frank sacrifices the queen on d1 for a back rank checkmate. Incredible. One of the most common tactical patterns in chess. Frank detonates it on an unsuspecting opponent. His opponent didn't have a killer instinct in this game and goes down. And folks, it's not stopping. Frank with the white pieces has also been... well, that's a terrible move. Frank, you cannot put 2 pawns in the center if you're going to lose one. You got to move your bishop, which is what I taught you. But it's just a pawn, and we've seen him come back from worse. This time he decided to give his opponent a little bit of odds, but b4, his opponent went knight e4, hanging queen. Now the knight is hanging. This queen is hanging. His opponent negating development. Now the queen takes the knight. The queen is still hanging. Now Frank gets a rook 2, plays bishop d3, rook d1, and his opponent plays queen c3 check. Frank can take that, but he feels bad for his opponent. But his opponent insists. His opponent insisting on the loss of the queen. And, yeah. It's going to be over soon. And by soon, I mean right now. And Frank beats a 600, and for the first time ever, Frank has crossed 600 elo. He won 6 out of 7 games to get there. That's not the end. That is not the end of the story, because when I sat down to prepare this video today, Frank started playing a few more games, and this man just will not stop. He is a man on a mission. He will not be denied of whatever it is his rating goals are. He won't stop. Look at Frank playing the Vienna. The 2 pawns and the knight on c3. Now, here you're supposed to take, but knight f3. I also told Frank never to take this pawn, but, you know, we'll get there. One step at a time. Bishop c5, bishop c4, bishop c5, knight g4. And Frank, you know, because he didn't study the Vienna perfectly, runs into a little bit of trouble, but it's all good. And then this game gets real weird. Rook h1, which just loses the game to queen h4 check. His opponent goes here. Now, rook h5. We call this the Frank Vienna. f6. Now he goes here attacking the bishop. The bishop infiltrates. Knight e3 actually wins the queen. I don't know if that was some sort of miracle or what. You can take, but if you do that, there's queen d1. So Frank loses the queen for 2 pieces. And he's just busted up. I mean, he's going to lose the bishop. He's going to lose the knight. But then here he finds bishop back to e2. But black takes this. Now Frank is down 8 points of material. So he brings his rook back. Takes on f5. He comes back to h5. Bishop g4 and queen g4, by the way, both win. His opponent goes here. Takes this and is just completely winning. g6, bishop f3. And then in this position, for reasons I cannot fully explain, I've been telling you all this entire time, the last person to make the mistake is the one that loses. Queen f4 check. And Frank takes the queen. His opponent spent 10 seconds on that move. Played the worst move on the board. Frank backs up, and now here come the bishops, the triumphant and glorious bishops. Rook e7, rook e3, discover check, and it gets even worse because after losing his queen and his rook, his opponent lost the game. Frank is up to 630. He has not lost in 48 hours. Frank has not lost a chess game in 48 hours. Could we be seeing the greatest arc in chess since Magnus Carlsen? Wow. Sky's the limit. Now get out of here.